Okay, so for whatever reasons, federal government or certain elements in the federal government do not want Mr. Larry Hoover free. So, as we remember back in May, Harold Trump, pardoned Larry Hoover. But now I thought Larry Hoover imprisoned so-called leader of the Gangster Disciples at one time. He renounced his membership formally a couple years ago. He's been in prison for a state homicide in the city of Chicago. I need to do a story on that. It's so interesting, the actual story of Larry Hoover's murder. Did you know Larry Hoover's murder occurred across the street from O-Block? Like, it's on that, it's literally on the other side of the street. When I was at O-Block, I looked across the street and I saw, Robert's Best Hotel. That's where Larry Hoover's homicide occurred. And guess who built, or at least bought and owned that hotel and fixed it up? Fluky Stokes. So that part of Chicago, O-Block, Fluky Stokes, Larry Hoover, all the Chicago street, not all the Chicago street history, but a bunch of famous things happen right there. But anyways, so in 1973, Larry Hoover and his co-defendant, Howard, was the last guy's name, was his last name Howard or first name Howard? Howard, I'm just going to call him. Grabbed a guy, Andrew Pookie. I don't know if they really call him that, these newspaper nicknames. Andrew Young. And Mr. Howard actually was the trigger man. Larry was he was part of the conspiracy. I don't think he's per se innocent of that. But that was in 1972. That's 52 years he's been in prison. Imagine that. So he's one of only 35 Illinois inmates that has been in for this long, since before only 35 people have been in since before 1978. He's one of them. There's been people who've been released who chisapped his arms off, serial grape juice makers, you know what I'm saying? Like, he's only convicted of one homicide. And the co-defendant, Mr. Howard, was paroled, not because he snitched or none of that. He got his parole 30 years ago. That guy did 22 years. Right? His co-defendant did 20 years, and he was paroled 30 years ago. Think about that. In the state of New York, the strongest sentence you can get is 25 to life. That's why you have infamous, one of the guys convicted in the murder of Officer Ed Byrne, the infamous crack era, Queen, Supreme, Fat Cat Nichols homicide. That guy's out. Not the trigger man, but one of them's out, because 25 to life, you come up for parole. The infamous Blue Boy murked Larry Davis when Larry Davis was about to be getting out from his 25 to life. Like, a lot of countries in South America, the most time you could do is 22 years. I think in Germany, unless they put special circumstances on you, like 7 years for murder. So Larry Hoover has been in, he's one of the longest serving living inmates. He's been in 52 years. So for a homicide that this co-defendant, who was the trigger man, got out 30 years ago. Andrew Howard, that's his name, right? I thought he was he was paroled from Trump commuted, which doesn't mean absolve you. It just means we're going to end it early. Doesn't mean you're not guilty. You just end it early. You were supposed to serve 80 years. I'm going to end it today. So he was transferred to the custody of the Illinois state prison system. I thought he was going back to Illinois, but they must have did an interstate compact, which I should have thought of. Interstate compact, like when I got my reefer case in Arizona, and then I did my little time there and came back here. They trade inmates, so, someone in Michigan, someone from Arizona needs to be on probation, or someone who got an Arizona case but is from Michigan, they're gonna let you do your probation in Michigan. but it's under the state of Arizona. So they traded inmates. They probably sent a problematic Colorado inmate or someone in PC or a gang or whatever to Illinois, and in Colorado kept Larry Hoover. So Larry Hoover is in a Colorado state prison. He's been there since May. It's only been so May 28th, June, July, August, September, October. Really only been there 5 months. According to the court filings and asking for him to get out now, they're trying to get him out of state prison. He's had 3 heart attacks. He's doing labor. They call it hard labor. I don't know what that means, but they're making him work. He's 74. Went to prison when he was 22. He's 74. And even this mythology of him being this, he created the gangster disciples and controls everything they do. I mean, I'm not an expert on gangster disciple history. I did interview U.S. Floyd, who was very prominent. If you listen to even U.S. Floyd's interview and some other interviews, Don Dirk, and just know about it, when Larry Hoover first went to prison, like when he was fighting his case, he took himself off count. There was a time in the early 70s he wasn't even a GD. He was off count because he was trying to beat his case and didn't want to be associated with the gang. And then they kind of it almost seems like to a degree, he was drafted. Like Larry Hoover, I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm sure he's a tough guy, whatever, but like he was, his intelligence and communication, interpersonal skills caused those around him to kind of like, no, you're gonna be the decision maker. They drafted him. I mean, that'll happen. I've been in situations where I definitely wasn't the tough guy, but like people were like, well, no, you're gonna be in charge. Like, you're not so much in charge, you're the coach. You're gonna be the decision maker because you're the best at making decisions. So Hoover got pushed into that. Now the federal government, of course, is very upset. They he didn't really embarrass them. He embarrassed the Illinois prison system. So we know from like the case of White Boy Rick, who they made do from the age of 17 to 50 years old, even though it was the police that made him into a drug dealer in the first place. He told on some police, if you do different things, you embarrass the state, whether you telling on police, whether you run an organization from prison, make them look bad, different, or you're a threat, behind the scenes, people can keep you locked up. With Larry Hoover, embarrassed Illinois Department of Corrections. He was running he was running the GDs, and there really was a kind of a window of time of maybe 15 years where what we think of the Chicago organizations were really, when they first started, and all those guys were very young, from the mid 60s to early 70s, but then they were all locked up. Fort was gone, Larry Hoover was gone, Barksdale died in 74. The Vice Lord guys went away in the early 70s. So then the gang activity was kind of down in the 70s, and then in 78 you had the Pontiac prison situation where there were 3 guards killed, a bunch of gang leaders, black gang leaders, all of them went on trial. They couldn't convict any of them, but that's when the People in the Folk Alliance was created to try to have some type of more order in prison. So everybody, including white gangs and Hispanic gangs, fell under the umbrella of the people that were the biggest gangs, with the Vice Lords and Blackstone / Al Rookin, Black P. Stone, and then the GDs, the BDs, the Latin disciples. The Kings, are the Kings folks or people? But anyways, you had Latin and white gangs with / under the umbrella of the largest gangs, which were black, to have some sort of order in prison. And Hoover was running the GDs from a comfortable... Hoover was one I considered to be one of the ringleaders. So I'm trying to think, why do they not... So they're not wanting to let Hoover out of the state prison. He's had 3 heart attacks since May. And doesn't sound like he's in good health. I mean, they wouldn't be lying about the heart attacks. There must be a record of them in the prison, right? I mean, they wouldn't tell a judge he had 3 heart attacks if there's no record of it, right? So it's not like he could pass anytime. Hoover, so why do they hate Hoover so much? What was it that he did in 78 at that prison thing in Pontiac, where he was just 6 years into what would become this 52-year sentence, or 5 years in? There were 3 guards taken out, 18 or 16 or something inmates that were leaders of, pretty much represented all the different black gangs, went on trial. None were convicted. It was said that Larry Hoover was the ringleader, that he caused it to happen, to like, well, as some type of power play. I mean, I'm just repeating what one of the theories is, and that he called the riot, or he caused it, and the guards to get hit, and then he also has stopped it and instilled some order. So the governor basically cut a deal, like, move me to a more comfortable prison and let me do my thing, and I'll tamp down as much as I can of the prison violence. Because if you have see, in California, they're all caught up in that dumb shit with each other. First and foremost, in California, they're all sitting around looking to assault their so-called homeboys in their own gang. That's what they really are into. That's their thing, to turn on each other. Then it's the whole racial thing. You never hear the California people talk anything about the guards or the system. It's like a game that they like playing. They in love with assaulting each other, and then some race war nonsense. In Illinois and Michigan, you notice you don't hear no, Michigan Department of Corrections don't let no information come out. They destroyed a whole prison about 15 years ago in Michigan. Shout out, peace to the Melanic Palace. What is it? The Melanic Palace of the Islamic Rising Sun, the Melanics. They're accused, alleged, they were a religious group with Nat Turner as their prophet. But after, what prison was it? Hiawatha was destroyed. I think they took their religious status away, and now they're just called a security threat group. I'm not sure how many Melanics are left in the prisons. The Melanics are a very interesting topic, but it's separate. But point being, if inmates are aligned against the prison system couldn't stand. So they need to keep them on dumb shit, right? Stabbing each other over, you used our chin-up bars. Can you imagine? You have a riot because someone of a different race used your chin-up bars. And then the whites in California, if you smoke a cigarette butt off the ground and you're white because a black could have touched it, they're going to stab you. So Larry Hoover, if they feel he orchestrated something and he was manipulating the prison system, I guess that's probably why they fear him. But let him out then. But they don't want him back in Illinois State Prison, that's for sure. So he's in Colorado State Prison. He's had 3 life terms. After he got moved out of Pontiac Prison in 78, he went to Vienna. He was chilling for like 15 years. GDs got to their peak. They started having national news stories. After the Crips, and it's funny, it's being someone who studies this, it's just really easy to see the propaganda element. All during the 80s, first they filled up the news in the early 80s with Cubans and Colombians, then they moved on to, everything's the Bloods and the Crips' fault. Then after that kind of ran, you got sick of hearing about them. Now it's the GDs and Larry Hoover. So this idea there's 30 or 35,000 GDs and they all did what Larry Hoover said, that's ridiculous. I mean, who's in a street gang? Like, now, there's high caliber human beings in everything. People that rise to, I mean, like some ex-GDs I met that are older guys, very intelligent, great, you know. But generally, who are the foot soldiers of a street gang? Who are the GDs selling crack on a street corner in Mobile, Alabama in 1990? Well, they're high school dropouts. Like, you really think there's that strict of a chain of command? Larry Hoover is responsible for every crime. So an inappropriate thing in Hoover's trying to get out now is the judge, or no, the prosecutor or the judge said it. How many murders do you think Larry Hoover's responsible for as running the GDs? Well, he's convicted of one. You shouldn't be prejudicing or just making up numbers about, he's responsible for one. The one he was convicted of. And all those various other GD indictments, they never convicted him of another murder. He wasn't charged with one. So, will Larry Hoover get out before he passes away? What do you guys think? It doesn't seem like they want him out. Governor Pritzker, who's been going back and forth with Trump about the National Guard. Well, I ain't going back and forth no more. The National Guard ain't going to Illinois. I mean, you know, what is... politically, is there, you got to think from a politician's perspective, what is there to gain from pardoning Larry Hoover? What is there to lose? Certainly, if he gets out and anything happens that even could falsely be connected with him getting out, makes you look very bad. Whereas on the other hand, the kind of people that would be, oh great, Larry Hoover's out, are they really voter? I don't know. Hard to say. So he may not ever get out of the state place, or they may wait. I mean, he may, if he gets in, not wishing this on him, but in very bad, well, eventually we all get into very bad health. If he gets into very bad health, you know, they'll probably let him out like they did with Tulu Shakur. I don't think he lived a year out. So if Hoover really has had 3 heart attacks and all that, maybe they'll let him out. But also, Hoover, and of course, and you can watch my other Hoover stories. I'm not going to rehash it all here, but of course, then also he was involved with Operation 21st Vote, and he was really going to impact, or did impact a little bit, Chicago politics. And if you can impact Chicago politics, you impact the Illinois politics, which is a state with a lot of electoral votes. And as we know, presidential elections can turn on one state. So the idea that an incarcerated gang leader could have moved enough votes to change the Electoral College of Illinois and maybe caused a different president one of these times is a frightening proposition to the powers that be, or at least some of them. The Democrats should have maybe latched onto it a little bit more. But Trump pardoned him, but he's in this Colorado state prison system. He's had 3 heart attacks. So if you're someone who has positive thoughts for Larry Hoover, you know, pray for him, write him a letter. I don't know if there's a petition to let him out in the state of Illinois or something, but it's up to the governor of Illinois, Pritzker, whether Larry Hoover gets out. He sounds like he's not doing well. He's been in prison 52 years for one murder. His co-defendant served 20 years and got out 30 years ago. Free Larry Hoover, out Profit American Dope.